Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take that, pile of sources, all the articles, the research you've gathered, and we really boil it down to the key insights, the knowledge you can actually use.
Hmm.
You know that feeling, right? You're working with children, maybe they're your own kids, your grandkids, students you teach, or even young people you mentor out in the community.
Yeah, that connection is so important.
It is. And you want to give them the absolute best start. Create that perfect environment where they can really thrive, where they genuinely want to learn and grow. But let's face it, the world they're stepping into, it's changing incredibly fast.
Unbelievably fast.
So how do you keep up? How do you really know what ignites that inner spark in them?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, that's our mission today. We're doing a deep dive into the very latest research on motivation theory and, crucially, how you can practically apply it, specifically for nurturing young minds in this, well, hyper-connected, rapidly changing world we're all navigating. Our goal is to make you, our listener, and maybe especially you, if you're a parent, grandparent, educator, mentor, perhaps in your mid-50s or older, really dedicated to this next generation, just incredibly well-informed on what truly drives these amazing young people.
Yeah, to get beyond the surface level stuff.
Totally. We're going to uncover some surprising facts, I think, and hand you some really actionable insights you can, start using pretty much right away. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding the secret language of intrinsic motivation in kids today.
I like that. The secret language.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our sources kick things off with a really fascinating overview of what's genuinely new in motivation theory. And this isn't just about kids, not yet anyway.
Yeah, it's broader initially.
It is. It's about understanding the fundamental fuel for human behavior. It draws from psychology, neuroscience, even organizational studies, and it really sets the stage for everything else we'll talk about regarding children.
What's fascinating, I think, is how some core ideas remain really consistent even as our scientific toolkit gets sharper. Self-determination theory, or SDT, as it's often called.
SDT, right? I've heard that.
Yeah, it continues to be pretty much the dominant framework. It basically argues that all humans have these three fundamental psychological needs. And when these needs are met, intrinsic motivation, that deep internal drive, the real stuff, it doesn't just like magically appear.
It's not automatic.
No, it flourishes. It's like tending a garden, right? You provide the right conditions, good soil, water, sunlight, and the plants grow naturally from within. It's not about forcing them.
So these aren't just nice ideas, they're almost like psychological vitamins, requirements for us to, well, function well and feel driven.
That's a great way to put it, psychological vitamins.
Yeah.
And those three needs, as our sources really emphasize, are autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Autonomy, competence, relatedness. They sound like pretty solid pillars.
They really are. Think of autonomy first. It's that deep-seated need we all have to feel a sense of choice and control over our own actions.
Like you're in the driver's seat.
Exactly. Feeling like you're the true originator of your behavior, not just, a pawn being moved around.
Yeah.
There's new research, for example, looking at workplaces with flexible policies, things like choosing your work hours or where you work from.
Oh, okay.
It shows that this kind of flexibility boosts motivation significantly, even when people are under a lot of pressure.
Interesting.
But conversely, when people experience what the research calls autonomy frustration, maybe in super rigid top-down organizations, or even, interestingly, in a lot of modern gamified systems.
Gamified systems, like apps with points and badges.
Yeah, precisely. When autonomy feels thwarted, intrinsic motivation can just, plummet.
Wow. So even for us adults, if you feel like you're just ticking boxes or constantly chasing some leaderboard, your internal spark might actually go out. That's powerful. And I can immediately see how that applies to children, maybe even more strongly.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine forcing a child to practice piano only for points or because you said so, instead of letting them find the joy in the music itself.
That's exactly the risk. It's subtle, but it can really shift their focus away from the activity itself. The research also points out cultural variations, which is important.
How so?
Well, in some collectivist societies, for instance, the drive might come more naturally from contributing to the group's success, rather than purely individual choice. Group motivation might actually be prioritized over individual autonomy.
Okay, so it's not always about me.
Right. And this makes us think, doesn't it? When we're planning group activities for kids, how do we balance giving them individual choice with harnessing that powerful motivation that comes from working towards a shared goal, feeling part of a team? It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing.
That's a really crucial distinction. Okay, so that's autonomy. Then there's competence.
Competence, yes. The need to feel effective, capable, like you can actually interact successfully with your environment.
Feeling like you can do stuff, learn new things.
Exactly. Experiencing mastery, even small steps of it. And the third one is relatedness.
Relatedness. Connection.
Yes, the need to feel connected to others, cared for, like you belong, having meaningful relationships, feeling like you matter to a group or community. All three of these are just absolutely critical for nurturing intrinsic motivation in anyone, really, but especially in children.
So, if we want to support a child's inner drive, the question we should be asking ourselves is, how are we making sure they feel a sense of choice, that they feel capable, and that they feel genuinely connected?
Precisely. And the research suggests that even small things, small ways of supporting their choice and independent decision-making can have a really dramatic impact on their internal drive. It doesn't have to be huge gestures.
That's encouraging. Okay, so beyond these sort of psychological foundations, our sources really get into the neuroscience of motivation. And this is where it gets, well, really compelling, I think. We're talking dopamine, the brain's reward system. Stuff we hear about but maybe don't fully grasp.
Right. And the advances in brain imaging, things like fMRI, have given us a much deeper window into this. It turns out dopamine release isn't just about, getting the prize at the end.
It's not just the finish line.
No, it's profoundly tied to the anticipation of progress and the learning we get from feedback along the way.
Ah, so the journey matters, neurologically speaking.
Very much so. Those incremental steps, getting constant input on how you're doing, that's just as important, maybe even more important for sustaining effort than the final outcome. Newer studies also look at the perceived cost of effort.
Cost, like how hard it feels.
Yeah, exactly. Mental effort, physical work, that perceived cost significantly influences our motivation. People are simply more motivated, less likely to quit when tasks align with their personal values or when they get immediate, clear feedback on their efforts.
Okay, that makes so much sense. So if a child sees the genuine purpose in what they're doing, if it connects to something they care about, or if they get quick feedback, not just a grade a week later, but something more immediate,
Like, hey, you're really getting the hang of that technique.
right, then they're far more likely to stick with it. That resonates deeply. And speaking of feedback, that immediately brings Carol Dweck's work on mindset to mind, growth mindset.
Yes, absolutely. Carol Dweck's research on neuroplasticity, the brain's amazing ability to change and grow and growth mindset, is directly linked to motivation. The core idea is pretty powerful.
It really is.
Believing that your abilities can be developed through effort and learning, that they aren't just fixed traits you're born with. That belief significantly enhances persistence, especially when tasks get challenging.
Which they inevitably do for kids learning new things.
Always. So for children, helping them understand that their brain is literally like a muscle and it gets stronger with effort and practice and learning from mistakes that can foster such a powerful can-do attitude.
It reframes difficulty, doesn't it?
Completely. It makes challenges less threatening. So this understanding of brain chemistry really informs how we should structure tasks, how we give feedback, focusing on effort and strategy, not just outcome, and how we foster resilience in young people. It's about teaching them that powerful phrase, I can't do it yet.
That yet is everything. That's such a vital connection for anyone working with kids, whether you're a parent, teacher, coach. It's not just about rah-rah encouragement, but helping them understand why their effort matters, right down to the wiring of their brain.
Precisely.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to goal-setting theory. Many of us are familiar with setting goals, SMART goals perhaps, but our sources mention some important kind of modern updates here.
Yeah, the foundations laid by Locke and Latham are still incredibly relevant, but modern research definitely builds on it. We now talk a lot about dynamic goal adjustment.
Dynamic adjustment, so not setting them in stone.
Exactly. Instead of setting really rigid performance goals like, you must get an A on this test.
Which can feel very high pressure.
Immensely. Research shows that setting more flexible, learning-oriented goals, like, my goal is to really understand this historical period, or I want to figure out 3 different ways to solve this math problem, that actually boosts resilience, especially when kids face setbacks.
Because the goal isn't just the outcome, it's the process of learning itself.
You got it. This is so critical for children because encountering challenges is just part of learning. Helping them set goals that are about learning, improving, adapting, rather than just hitting a fixed target is absolutely key to keeping that motivation going long term. It helps them see every stumble as an opportunity to learn something new, not as a final failure.
That reframing again. Powerful. And there's also something called temporal motivation theory, TMT. That sounds like it brings time into the equation. Deadlines, maybe.
It does, very much so.
Mm.
Steele and Coney's work here integrates time and how much we value a task. It looks at how those two things interact to influence our motivation.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, it shows pretty clearly that the closer you get to a deadline, the more effort you typically put in. Proximity matters.
Right, that last-minute panic or push.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, the more valuable you perceive a task to be, the more motivated you are to actually do it, regardless of the deadline sometimes.
Makes sense.
So, for tackling procrastination, which, let's face it, is common.
For kids and adults.
Absolutely. Especially with big, daunting tasks, TMT suggests interventions like using micro-deadlines, breaking things down.
Micro deadlines. Little steps.
Yeah. So for children, this means taking that big school project or that long book report and breaking it down into smaller, much more manageable steps. Each little step gets its own mini deadline or checkpoint.
So you're not just saying, this whole thing is due in a month, good luck.
Right, which can feel overwhelming.
You're saying, okay, let's just focus on getting the research notes done by Friday. Or can we finish sketching out the introduction before dinner tonight? That feels much more doable.
Precisely. That immediate proximity makes the next step feel more real, less intimidating. This structured approach helps maintain motivation because it provides frequent small wins along the way. And those wins build that crucial sense of confidence and keep momentum going. Builds resilience, too.
Small wins fueling the bigger journey. I like that. And finally, in this sort of foundational section, we absolutely cannot ignore the social and environmental influences on motivation. This feels huge today.
It's incredibly powerful and perhaps more complex than ever.
Especially for kids growing up now with constant digital interaction, social media, social comparison, for example. That must be massive.
Oh, it's massively amplified. Our sources highlight how social media and highly competitive environments ramp up social comparison. And often, upward comparison, seeing others who seem way more successful or talented, can be incredibly demotivating if that gap feels too huge, too insurmountable.
Like, I could never be that good, so why even try?
Exactly that feeling. But here's a really interesting nuance the research points out. If those comparisons are paired with attainable role models.
Attainable, someone closer to their level.
Yes, someone who's maybe just a few steps ahead, someone relatable, whose success feels achievable with effort. Then seeing them succeed can actually be really inspiring, really motivating.
Ah, okay. So for kids, it's about providing those positive, relatable examples, not just showcasing the superstar prodigy who seems to do everything effortlessly, because that might actually backfire.
Precisely. It's about seeing the process someone relatable went through, not just the final amazing outcome. It highlights the power of who they look up to, who they see as being like them.
That makes a lot of sense. What about environmental cues? You mentioned nudging.
Yeah, this comes a lot from behavioral economics, but it applies broadly. Research shows that subtle changes in our environment can significantly influence our behavior and motivation, often without us even consciously realizing it.
Like what kind of changes?
Oh, things like visual reminders of goals, a checklist on the fridge, a progress chart on the wall, or simply creating well-designed ergonomic spaces that make tasks easier or more pleasant. Stimulating environments versus drab ones. For children, think about the physical setup of where they do homework or where they play.
The lighting, the clutter.
Exactly. Or even having visible schedules and routines. These things can positively influence their engagement and focus without you having to constantly remind or, well, nag them.
That's a very practical tip. Create the right environment. And equity and fairness, how does that fit into motivation? I imagine that's huge for children, especially in groups.
It's absolutely fundamental. The perception of fairness and how opportunities are given, how resources are shared, how recognition is awarded is an incredibly strong motivator, particularly in diverse settings like classrooms or teams.
So if things feel unfair.
Research clearly indicates that perceived inequity actively reduces intrinsic motivation. It can lead to disengagement, resentment, even cynicism. For children, this means we need to be really conscious about ensuring that opportunities, resources, attention, praise, all of it feels fair, transparent, and accessible to everyone. If they sense favoritism or unequal treatment, or that the system is somehow rigged,
Their internal drive just shuts down.
it really can. No matter how inherently interesting the activity might be, that sense of injustice can poison the well.
So it's not just the task itself, but the whole context. The social dynamics, the peer interactions, the fairness of the environment, even the physical space, it all profoundly affects their motivation.
Wow, that's a lot to consider. But these insights really lay the groundwork for understanding what's going on with the next generation.
They really do. It sets the stage for looking at their unique situation. Okay, here's where it gets, I think, really interesting. We've talked about these sort of timeless, fundamental drivers of motivation. Now let's fast forward, because the children you, our listener, might be working with today, or maybe your grandchildren, they're unlike any generation before.
Truly unique context.
Our sources take all this foundational research and apply it specifically to a crucial group, children born after 2022. These are the true digital natives, the AI natives in a way. Their world is already radically different from the one we grew up in, even different from kids born just 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
So what does the current research speculate about their intrinsic motivation, given this unique, tech-saturated, rapidly evolving context?
Well, what's really fascinating and maybe a bit daunting is how profoundly their context is shaped by ubiquitous technology AI everywhere. Immersive VR becoming normal, gamified apps in almost every aspect of life, from learning to playing to socializing, and also by rapidly evolving societal norms around things like equity, purpose, mental health. So we really need to constantly ask, how do these huge macro trends impact those core needs? We talked about their need for autonomy, for competence, for relatedness.
Okay, let's break that down. Technology first. On the one hand, it feels like it could be this incredible booster for their intrinsic motivation, right? Things like personalized learning sound amazing on paper.
Potentially, yes. A massive booster in some ways. Think about AI tutors, for instance. They can provide incredibly personalized feedback, adapting in real time to a child's specific learning style and pace.
Tailored exactly to them.
Exactly. That can truly enhance their sense of competence by offering challenges that are perfectly calibrated. Too easy, not boringly hard, just right. Adaptive learning platforms can break down complex subjects, making difficult tasks feel achievable, which directly feeds that intrinsic drive.
Like having a patient, infinitely knowledgeable tutor available 24/7.
Kind of. Imagine a child struggling with, say, fractions. An AI tutor could instantly pinpoint why they're stuck and offer engaging, targeted exercises just on that specific misunderstanding until they get it. That feeling of, aha, I finally understand, that sense of mastery is immensely powerful for motivation.
Okay, that's the positive side. But I'm sensing a significant but coming. The constant digital rewards, the algorithms steering them.
Absolutely. There's a substantial potential downside we need to be really aware of. Excessive screen time is one obvious concern, but it's more nuanced than just hours logged. The algorithms designed to maximize engagement time can subtly, or not so subtly, reduce autonomy.
How so? By always suggesting the next thing.
Precisely. By constantly steering their choices, dictating what they watch, play, or even learn next. Think of those endless scrolling feeds or auto-playing videos or hyper-personalized recommendations. They can funnel children down surprisingly narrow paths, limiting their organic, self-directed exploration.
So they're not discovering things on their own as much.
Potentially less, yes. And then there are those constant digital rewards. The points, the badges, the likes, the satisfying little sounds, the streaks.
The dopamine hits?
Exactly. They can trigger what psychologists call the over-justification effect.
Over-justification.
Yeah. Remember the example of paying a child who loves drawing for their pictures?
Right. They start drawing for the money, not the love of it.
That's it. The external reward, the money, the points, the likes, overshadows the internal satisfaction, the joy of drawing, the pride in learning. Their focus shifts from intrinsic enjoyment to extrinsic validation.
And the long-term risk.
The speculation, based on this research, is that these children might genuinely struggle more with unplugged activities or any pursuit that requires sustained, internally driven effort without constant external feedback or rewards. Unless, and this is the key, unless their autonomy is very intentionally and deliberately fostered elsewhere.
What does that look like?
It looks like providing abundant opportunities for open-ended, self-directed play. Real-world play where they make the rules, they define the goals, they figure things out, without an app telling them what to do next. Building forts, making up stories, exploring nature.
That kind of classic childhood stuff feels even more important now then.
Critically important as a counterbalance. The real concern for parents, educators, anyone working with kids. It means we have to be incredibly deliberate about managing their digital diet, not just limiting screen time, but consciously curating the quality of their digital experiences and ensuring plenty of time for that self-directed, intrinsic activity.
That makes sense. Okay, moving on to educational systems. Our sources talk about a major shift already happening there too.
Yes, education is definitely in flux. There's a strong move towards more personalized, competency-based models. Less focus on everyone learning the same thing at the same pace, more on individual mastery. Plus, a greater emphasis on skills like critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and often using hybrid learning environments, blending online tools with in-person instruction.
And the potential upside for motivation seems huge here too. Tailored learning.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Tailored curricula that genuinely align with a child's individual interests and learning style can powerfully enhance both autonomy,
Yeah.
I get to learn about things I care about, and competence. I'm learning at a pace that works for me.
Right.
Project-based learning is a great example. When kids get to dive deep into a topic they're authentically passionate about, whether it's dinosaurs or coding or sustainable farming, it feels less like schoolwork and more like an exciting exploration. That's pure intrinsic motivation fuel right there. They get to explore, create, solve real problems in ways that feel meaningful to them.
That sounds like the dream educational scenario for boosting motivation. But again, the potential pitfalls.
Again, yes, we have to be mindful. An overemphasis on easily quantifiable performance metrics, things like standardized test scores or constant digital tracking of every click and answer.
The data obsession.
Exactly. That can subtly undermine intrinsic motivation if children start feeling controlled by the metrics rather than feeling self-directed in their learning. If it's all about the score, the dashboard, the ranking, where's the joy of discovery?
It becomes about performing for the system, not learning for yourself.
Precisely. And the pressure to perform in these often tech-driven systems might also inadvertently reduce relatedness. If kids are spending more time interacting with adaptive software than collaborating deeply with their peers or building strong relationships with their teachers, that crucial sense of connection can suffer. So the speculation is that intrinsic motivation will really thrive in schools and learning environments that prioritize mastery, curiosity, genuine human connection, and student agency. But it might really suffer in overly rigid tech-heavy systems that are predominantly focused on measurable outputs and standardized performance over genuine intellectual curiosity and social-emotional development.
It really sounds like this constant tightrope walk, doesn't it? Leveraging the amazing potential of technology while fiercely protecting those fundamental human needs, autonomy, competence, relatedness that fuel intrinsic drive.
That's exactly the challenge. And it extends beyond schools to the broader social and cultural shifts these kids are growing up in. Their world is just so different.
How so? What are the big shifts impacting their motivation?
Well, children born after 2022 will grow up with a heightened, almost innate awareness of issues like equity, diversity, inclusion, and mental health, much more so than previous generations.
That's definitely true.
This is happening alongside ongoing anxieties about things like economic instability and environmental crises. Now, research highlights that purpose-driven motivation is becoming increasingly important, especially for these younger generations. They really want their actions, their lives, to mean something bigger.
They want to make a difference.
They really do. And the positive impact of this is potentially huge. Early and constant exposure to purpose-driven narratives, think about climate action, social justice movements, community building initiatives, this can foster incredibly strong intrinsic motivation. Why? Because it directly connects their personal efforts, even small ones, to meaningful, impactful causes that resonate with their values. It gives them a powerful sense of agency, a reason why learning and effort matter beyond themselves.
So a child who feels like their science project could actually contribute even in a tiny way to understanding climate change, or that their community service helps real people. That connection fuels their motivation more deeply and for longer.
Exactly. It taps into that fundamental human need for meaning and contribution. They want to be part of the solution, not just passive bystanders. That's a powerful intrinsic driver.
Okay, but the flip side, there always seems to be a flip side.
There often is. The negative side here includes that relentless social comparison, massively amplified by social media, which we already touched on. It can pressure children into constantly seeking external validation, chasing likes, followers, online approval, which again erodes intrinsic motivation for authentic self-expression and pursuing genuine interest.
Keeping up appearances online instead of exploring who they really are.
Right. Furthermore, significant economic or environmental stressors could potentially shift their focus towards more extrinsic, survival-oriented goals. I need to get this specific job, I need to make a lot of money, potentially overshadowing deeper, more intrinsic pursuits like learning for its own sake or creative exploration.
So anxiety about the future could push them towards more external markers of success.
It's a risk. The speculation here is that children raised in supportive communities, families, schools, neighborhoods that genuinely emphasize purpose, collaboration, and contribution over superficial status or intense competition will likely develop stronger intrinsic motivation. Conversely, highly competitive, unstable, or overly materialistic environments might push them more towards extrinsic drivers, potentially leading to burnout or cynicism later on.
This all ties so deeply into parenting and social connection, doesn't it? The immediate environment they grew up in. Our sources mentioned evolving parenting styles, too.
They absolutely do, and it connects directly back to self-determination theory. Parenting trends are generally shifting towards fostering emotional intelligence and being more autonomy supportive.
Autonomy supportive parenting, what does that mean exactly?
It means parents who actively encourage choice within reasonable boundaries, validate their children's feelings, even negative ones, provide rationales for rules rather than just saying, because I said so, and support their child's initiative. This style, heavily backed by SDT research, is shown to deeply nurture a child's intrinsic motivation.
So less controlling, more guiding and supporting their independence.
Exactly. And strong, secure parent-child bonds built on warmth and responsiveness directly enhance that crucial need for relatedness. Feeling safe, loved, and understood is a fundamental motivator for children to explore the world confidently.
Okay, that's the ideal. But what are the challenges in today's world? You mentioned remote work, digital distractions.
Right. Those are potential negative impacts. Paradoxically, sometimes an overemphasis on safety or achievement, which can manifest as helicopter parenting or snowplow parenting.
Clearing every obstacle out of their way.
Yes. While often well-intentioned, it can unintentionally stifle a child's development of autonomy and confidence. They don't learn to solve problems or navigate challenges independently if obstacles are always removed for them.
They don't build resilience.
Exactly. And yes, digital distractions are a huge factor. And it's not just the kids' screens. When parents are constantly distracted by their own devices, even if they're physically present, it can unintentionally weaken relatedness. It reduces the quantity and, maybe more importantly, the quality of meaningful, present, face-to-face interactions.
That feeling of thubbing being ignored for a phone.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
So the speculation is that children raised in households that manage to find that tricky balance, providing structure and guidance, but also fostering freedom and independence, and very intentionally prioritizing quality, in-person connected time. Those children will likely have higher intrinsic motivation than kids raised in environments that are either overly controlling or feel emotionally disconnected. For you, as someone who works with children, this just underscores the incredible power of your dedicated, focused presence and intentional connection in their lives. You might be providing that crucial supportive relationship.
That's a really important point for educators, mentors, grandparents, anyone spending that quality time. Okay, finally, let's circle back to the brain itself, neuroscience and developmental considerations. How do the unique characteristics of these young, rapidly developing brains factor into their motivation?
Well, intrinsic motivation, as we discussed, hinges heavily on that dopamine-driven reward anticipation system and how much value a child perceives in a task. But the absolutely crucial thing to remember about children's brains is their high neuroplasticity.
They're incredibly adaptable, moldable.
Exactly. Much more so than adult brains. This means early experiences are profoundly critical. They are literally shaping the neural pathways, the motivational patterns that can influence them for a lifetime.
Wow, so the stakes are really high in these early years.
They are. On the positive side, this plasticity means that enriched environments filled with diverse, engaging stimuli, think exposure to art, music, nature exploration, complex puzzles, creative building toys, rich storytelling, truly open-ended play, these things can literally wire the brain for curiosity, for exploration, for love of learning.
It's building the foundation for intrinsic motivation.
Absolutely. And interventions focused on growth mindset, as Dweck has shown, can further reinforce persistence and resilience by building their belief in their own ability to grow and learn through effort.
So actively exposing children to rich, varied, challenging, but achievable experiences isn't just nice to have, it's fundamental brain building for motivation.
Exactly. But then, of course, there's the negative impact to consider. Overexposure to constant instant gratification stimuli.
Like those super fast-paced short-form videos, or addictive games with constant little rewards.
Precisely those. The concern is that this kind of relentless, low-effort, high-reward stimulation may inadvertently rewire their developing reward systems to strongly favor quick, easy, extrinsic payoffs.
Making it harder to stick with things that require patience.
Exactly. It can make sustained effort for intrinsic goals. Goals that often involve delayed gratification, deep focus, and overcoming frustration feel much harder, less appealing, maybe even neurologically less rewarding compared to the quick hits they're used to.
That's a sobering thought.
Yes, the speculation is that children born post-2022 will likely need deliberate, intentional exposure to slow activities to counterbalance these fast-paced digital inputs.
Slow activities, like what?
Things that require sustained attention and don't offer constant immediate rewards. Reading a complex chapter book, solving a multi-step science experiment or a challenging puzzle over time, engaging in prolonged imaginative play or creative building, having deep, unhurried conversations, learning a musical instrument, activities that build focus, patience, and reward deep engagement.
So we need to consciously carve out time and space for these deeper, slower experiences.
Yes, and value them. This is a vital role that parents, educators, mentors, you, our listener, can play, actively creating and protecting those opportunities for less instant, but ultimately more deeply rewarding. Engagement is crucial for maintaining their capacity for enduring intrinsic motivation.
That really pulls it all together, doesn't it? It paints a pretty comprehensive, if complex, picture of the unique motivational landscape for these children. Our sources also touch on some long-term speculative trends: AI personalization, purpose-driven culture, hybrid social lives.
Indeed, the future possibilities are quite something. AI, by adapting learning to a child's individual interests and pace, could theoretically boost autonomy and competence to levels we haven't seen before. But
Always a but with tech.
we have to remain vigilant about the potential downside, particularly the risk of reduced genuine human connection and over-reliance on the tech. On the purpose front, it's possible these children will grow up with a stronger intrinsic drive for collective goals, tackling climate change, promoting social equity, especially if they feel genuinely empowered and see tangible ways to contribute.
That's a hopeful thought.
It is. And finally, navigating the blend of virtual and real-world interactions will require them to develop incredibly strong self-regulation skills, social-emotional intelligence, and media literacy to thrive in these complex hybrid social dynamics.
So, pulling all of this together, the foundational theories, the unique context of kids born after 2022, the potential trends, what are the most important practical implications? What should those of us working with these children actually do to foster their intrinsic motivation?
Okay, let's try to distill it. For parents, perhaps the biggest things are actively encouraging autonomy through genuine choices in daily life. What to wear, what hobby to try, within reason. Setting thoughtful, consistent limits on screen time to consciously make space for that essential, self-directed, open-ended, unplugged play. And crucially, modeling intrinsic motivation yourself, pursuing your own interest, talking about why you enjoy learning or working hard at something meaningful. Kids notice that.
They absolutely do. Monkey see, monkey do. What about educators?
For educators, it's about shifting the focus in classrooms, designing learning experiences that prioritize deep exploration, critical thinking, and genuine curiosity over just achieving grades or test scores. Intentionally incorporating rich peer collaboration, not just individual work. And using technology strategically is a powerful tool to enhance learning and creativity, but not as the sole means of instruction or the replacement for strong teacher-student relationships.
Using tech to support, not supplant, human connection and deep learning.
Exactly. And then thinking more broadly for society as a whole. It's about actively creating environments. Think well-funded community centers, accessible libraries and museums, safe public parks and green spaces, mentoring programs, environments that consistently support and nurture curiosity, genuine human connection, and a sense of shared purpose. These spaces can act as vital counterweights to the strong extrinsic pulls from commercial interests and the potential isolation of digital life.
That's a powerful and really actionable roadmap for everyone involved in raising the next generation. Now, shifting our view again, but staying with these external influences, our sources also dive into something you might not immediately link to a child's motivation day to day: corporate social responsibility, or CSR.
Right. Seems a bit removed at first glance, doesn't it?
It does, but it turns out this is potentially a huge, often quite unseen influence on the environments and even the products our children are interacting with constantly.
Yeah, this raises a really important, maybe slightly uncomfortable question. How do the practices of corporations, especially those massive companies operating in the digital space where kids spend so much time, how do their choices, their products, their so-called responsible initiatives actually impact those core needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness that we know are critical for intrinsic motivation.
So are there efforts to do good actually helping? Or could they sometimes be unintentionally hindering?
That's exactly the question the research prompts us to ask. Our sources suggest several significant concerns that we, as the adults guiding children, really need to be aware of to be discerning about.
Okay, let's start with how corporate actions might inadvertently undermine that crucial sense of autonomy. How could that happen?
Well, remember the overjustification effect we talked about, how excessive external rewards can kill intrinsic interest.
Right. The points, the badges.
Exactly. Many corporations, particularly in the edtech, gaming, and social media sectors, build highly gamified systems right into the core of products aimed at children. Now, if their CSR initiatives, which might involve funding educational programs or donating these very products, fail to prioritize what we called autonomy supportive design.
Meaning design that encourages choice and exploration.
Yes, if they don't prioritize that, they risk creating and distributing tools that actually undermine a child's natural, curiosity-driven learning. Think about an educational app that's heavily marketed as fun and engaging, maybe even distributed free via a CSR program, but its primary mechanic is drilling facts for points and badges, rather than fostering genuine exploration, critical thinking, or creativity.
So it looks like learning, but it's actually training them to respond to external rewards, potentially squashing their desire to explore the subject more deeply on their own terms.
Precisely. The company might have genuinely good intentions aiming to make learning fun or more accessible. But if the design is fundamentally based on extrinsic motivators, the unintended consequence could be children becoming less curious, less self-directed learners over time. It's a really surprising counterintuitive outcome sometimes.
It really is. Okay, what's the next concern? Erosion of relatedness. How does CSR fit in there?
This connects to digital isolation. Research increasingly indicates that while digital platforms offer unprecedented connectivity, they don't always translate into deep, meaningful social connection. Sometimes they can even detract from it. And we know social comparison online can be really tough on kids' self-esteem and motivation.
So how might corporate actions, even CSR, play into that?
Well, corporations, particularly in tech and media, might design products that inadvertently prioritize maximizing screen time over encouraging rich, real-world interaction. Or they might heavily promote connectivity through their platforms without adequately addressing the quality of the relationships being formed or the potential negative social dynamics. So a CSR example might be a company making a large donation of tablets or laptops to underserved schools. On the surface, that looks great, increasing access to technology.
Bridging the digital divide, right?
That's the narrative. But if that donation isn't thoughtfully paired with programs that actively foster collaborative skills, support teachers in using the tech for meaningful interaction, and ensure time for face-to-face community building, it could inadvertently lead to more digital isolation within the school day. The implication for children could be weakened social bonds, a diminished sense of real belonging, which harms that crucial motivator, relatedness.
So it's not just about having the device, it's about how it's integrated into a socially rich environment. That's a subtle but really important point for anyone evaluating community programs or donations. What about equitable access and competence?
This is a huge concern highlighted in the sources. We know competence is fostered by facing achievable challenges, feeling like you can succeed with effort, and we know that perceived fairness in resource distribution strongly influences motivation.
Right.
CSR initiatives very often aim to improve access to education or technology in disadvantaged areas, which is a laudable goal. However, and this is critical, significant disparities in the quality or the implementation of these resources can actively undermine competence and motivation.
How so? Give an example.
Okay, imagine a corporation donates a batch of older, maybe slightly outdated computers to a school. Or they donate cutting-edge software, but provide absolutely zero teacher training or ongoing technical support.
So the teachers can't use it effectively or the tech doesn't work well?
Exactly. While the company might check off a box on their CSR report, we donated X computers,
Yeah.
the initiative fails to build real skills or confidence. In fact, it can profoundly demotivate both the teachers and the children who feel frustrated, incompetent, or left behind by tools they can't actually use effectively. It can end up widening the educational gap it was supposedly trying to bridge.
Wow. So the lesson is, it's not just about giving stuff. It's about ensuring the stuff is genuinely useful, high quality, and comes with the necessary support training infrastructure to actually build competence. good intentions aren't enough.
Execution and follow-through are everything. Then there's another tension: the focus on short-term CSR wins versus fostering long-term purpose.
What do you mean by that?
We noted how purpose-driven motivation is increasingly vital for younger generations. They care about authenticity and long-term impact. However, many corporate CSR strategies seem to prioritize highly visible, easily communicable short-term wins.
Like a big one-off donation that gets good press,
Yeah,
or a flashy environmental campaign.
exactly. Things that look good in the annual report or on social media. Sometimes this is referred to as greenwashing or purpose washing. The problem arises when these visible initiatives clash with the company's core business practices or fail to address systemic issues.
Like a company promoting recycling bins while its main products create massive waste.
Precisely. Or a tech company funding coding camps while its platform contributes to digital addiction or mental health issues. For children, especially those born post-2022 who are attuned to authenticity, encountering these stark contradictions can foster deep cynicism.
And that cynicism would definitely kill their intrinsic motivation to engage with those causes, or maybe even trust institutions in general. It sends a really confusing, hypocritical message.
It absolutely does. It undercuts the very sense of purpose the initiative might claim to support. We also need to consider the impact on mental health, often linked to overly pressurized environments.
How does CSR connect there?
Well, we know that excessive extrinsic motivation, always chasing the next reward, and constant, often negative social comparison, particularly online, can lead to significant stress, anxiety, and burnout in children. Some corporate practices, like aggressive marketing aimed directly at kids or creating highly competitive cultures within their games or platforms, can inadvertently create or exacerbate these high-pressure environments.
Making kids feel constantly judged or needing to perform.
Yes. Now, a company's CSR might involve funding, say, school wellness programs or mental health resources, which is good. But if they don't also address the underlying pressures potentially created by their own products or marketing, it's a bit like applying a Band-Aid without treating the wound. It might inadvertently contribute to the very demotivation and stress it claims to be alleviating.
Like those super competitive youth achievement scholarships we mentioned, they might look good as CSR, but the pressure they put on kids could be detrimental.
That's a perfect example of the potential tension. And finally, a really critical area: ethical concerns around AI and data-driven products designed for children.
This feels particularly relevant now.
It is. AI-driven feedback, as we said, can enhance learning and motivation. But it also carries risks, like fostering over-reliance on the tech and reducing genuine human interaction. And critically, children's highly plastic brains are especially sensitive to the motivational patterns being established by these powerful tools.
So what are the specific CSR concerns here?
Corporations developing AI products for children, whether for learning, play, or social connection, might prioritize maximizing engagement metrics. How long can we keep the child using the app? Over truly ethical, developmentally appropriate design. This focus could inadvertently shape children's motivational patterns in harmful ways.
Wow.
For instance, a company might make a CSR claim about personalized learning, while its algorithms rely on extensive data collection that subtly manipulates a child's choices and behavior, ultimately reducing their autonomy. Or a lack of transparency about how the AI works, or weak data privacy protections, could erode trust, harming that crucial sense of relatedness and psychological safety. If children feel controlled, manipulated, or exploited by the technology rather than empowered by it, that's deeply damaging to their intrinsic motivation.
That's quite a list of potential pitfalls. So for us as listeners, parents, educators, community members who are interacting with these systems and seeing these CSR initiatives, what should we be looking for? What are the practical recommendations or benchmarks we can use to gauge whether a corporation's impact is genuinely positive for children's intrinsic motivation?
That's the key question. As you navigate this complex landscape, try to look beyond the surface claims. Look for evidence that corporations are truly trying to design for autonomy. Are their products and programs genuinely encouraging choice, exploration, creativity, critical thinking? Or are they primarily based on extrinsic rewards and directing behavior?
Okay, design for autonomy. What else?
Look for efforts to actively foster relatedness. Are they just donating devices? Or are they funding initiatives that build real community, support mentorship, encourage face-to-face collaboration, and help kids develop healthy social skills both online and off?
So supporting connection, not just connectivity.
Exactly. Also, demand that they ensure equity in a meaningful way. Are the resources they provide high quality, culturally relevant, accessible to all children, and crucially, accompanied by adequate training and ongoing support, so they actually build competence and don't widen existing gaps.
Quality and support, not just quantity.
Right. Seek companies that align with purpose authentically. Are their CSR goals integrated into their core business? Do they demonstrate a genuine long-term commitment to societal well-being, or does it feel more like short-term PR or greenwashing? Look for consistency between words and actions.
Authenticity is key.
Absolutely. And they need to genuinely support mental health. This means not just funding reactive programs, but also designing products and marketing responsibly, promoting low-pressure, inclusive environments, and prioritizing children's overall well-being over maximizing engagement or profit.
Taking responsibility for their product's impact.
Yes. And finally, insist on ethical AI practices. This means demanding transparency about how algorithms work, robust data privacy protections specifically for children, and a human-centered design approach that genuinely supports autonomy, trust, and positive development, rather than manipulation or exploitation. For you, our listener, this means being a discerning consumer, a critical evaluator, and potentially an advocate, asking tough questions and recognizing which corporate help truly aligns with fostering deep, healthy, intrinsic motivation in children, and which might, however unintentionally, undermine it.
That gives us a much clearer lens for evaluating those influences. Okay, now let's bring this all down to earth. This is where we get really specific. Our sources provide a fantastic, detailed, real-world application. How can we actually build intrinsic motivation and critical thinking within a specific context, in this case, a religious education program for children up to age 13?
Right, and what's great about this example is that the principles are incredibly universal.
Exactly. While the context is religious education, the strategies and the underlying psychology offer lessons for anyone working with kids in almost any setting. Think sports teams, scouting, after-school clubs, music lessons, coding camps, even just parenting or grandparenting day to day.
Absolutely. If we connect this specific example back to the bigger picture we've been discussing, the core principles remain the same. It's about nurturing intrinsic motivation by supporting autonomy, competence, and relatedness. It's about fostering critical thinking skills, the ability to question, analyze, reflect, and it's about doing all this in a way that's developmentally appropriate for the children you're working with.
So for this religious education example, the guiding principles boil down to hit those SDT pillars: autonomy, competence, relatedness. Actively encourage questioning and analysis, not just passive acceptance. Tailor everything to the kid's age and developmental stage. And within the faith context specifically, the aim is to inspire genuine curiosity and personal connection, moving way beyond just rote compliance or memorization.
Exactly. That's the framework. Now let's dive into some really practical strategies suggested by the sources, keeping in mind how broadly these can be applied. First up, foster autonomy through choice and exploration.
Okay, why is this so critical? Especially in a context like religious education, which some kids might feel is, well, obligatory.
Because genuine engagement, deep learning, only happens when children feel a sense of ownership. If it feels like something they have to do, something being imposed on them, their intrinsic motivation is almost certainly undermined from the start. They need agency.
That makes perfect sense. You can't force genuine belief or curiosity. So how do you actually do that? Give us some concrete examples.
Okay, you start by offering real choices in their learning paths. Instead of just marching through a set curriculum, maybe create something like a faith exploration menu. Let kids pick which stories, figures, values, or questions they want to dive into each week or month.
So they have a say in the...
Exactly. Maybe one group chooses to explore a story about compassion, while another investigates the historical context of a particular ritual. You also need to create a genuinely safe space for them to ask the tough why questions. Questions about beliefs, practices, doubts, inconsistencies.
which can sometimes make adults uncomfortable.
It can. But it's crucial to frame questioning not as disrespect or lack of faith, but as a vital path to deeper, more personal understanding and ownership of their beliefs. Encourage personalized projects where they can connect the ideas to their own lives. Maybe they write a prayer reflecting their own hopes or worries, design a poster illustrating a value they personally connect with, or even create a short skit exploring a modern ethical dilemma through the lens of their faith tradition.
Making it relevant to them.
Totally. A fantastic example activity mentioned is running values in action projects. Here, children choose a specific religious value, say kindness, justice, stewardship, and then they actually design and implement a small community service activity related to it. Afterwards, they reflect on how their actions connected to their beliefs and what impact they had. that gives them real autonomy and purpose.
That sounds incredibly empowering. They're not just learning about values, they're living them out based on their own choices.
Cool.
Okay, next principle. Build competence through meaningful challenges.
Right, competence, that feeling of, I can do this, is a huge motivator. It grows when children experience mastery through tasks that are challenging, but achievable with effort. And critical thinking skills, analysis, evaluation, problem solving flourish when they get to actively practice these skills within that context.
So, not too easy, not impossibly hard, and actively engaging their brains.
Exactly. Strategies here include carefully scaffolding the learning. For younger kids, maybe 5 to 8 years old, you'd use engaging storytelling, simple moral dilemmas presented through games or puppets, lots of hands-on activities. For the older ones, say 9 to 13, you can introduce more complex, ethical dilemmas, explore a historical context more deeply, or analyze different interpretations of a text. You might ask, what would you have done in this situation? Or how do different translations of this passage change its meaning for us today?
So, you're gradually increasing the complexity and the level of critical thinking required as they develop, like climbing a ladder of understanding.
That's a great analogy. You also want to explicitly incorporate critical thinking exercises. Teach them the skills of comparing different perspectives on a story, evaluating the reliability of different sources of information, even within a religious context, or identifying underlying assumptions or messages in narratives.
Teaching them how to think, not just what to think.
Precisely. And crucially, when giving feedback, focus on their effort, their thinking process, the strategies they tried, and their growth over time, not just on whether they got the right answer. This preserves their sense of autonomy and encourages them to keep trying, even when things are difficult.
Focusing on process over product.
Yes. An example activity suggested is a moral mystery game. You present children with an ethical dilemma based on a religious story or teaching. Working in small teams, they have to discuss the different options, weigh the potential consequences, link their choices back to specific principles or teachings, and then maybe even defend their group's decision to others. That really sparks engagement and deep thinking.
I can absolutely see how that would get them talking, debating, and really wrestling with the ideas.
Okay, third pillar. Nurture relatedness through community and connection. This feels vital for any group setting, religious or otherwise. Absolutely vital. Relatedness, that sense of belonging, of being connected to others, of feeling safe and valued within the group, is a fundamental human need. It powerfully fuels intrinsic motivation because it creates psychological safety, making kids more willing to take risks, ask questions, and be vulnerable. In a setting like religious education, strong community ties don't just strengthen faith identity, they actively encourage collaborative learning, empathy, and shared critical thinking.
So, how do you intentionally build that relatedness?
Through lots of peer collaboration, design activities where kids have to work together, role-playing different characters from a story, respectfully debating ethical questions, creating collaborative art projects that express a shared understanding, working together on those values and action projects.
Learning from and with each other.
Exactly. Mentorship can also be incredibly powerful. Pairing older children with younger ones or connecting kids with adult volunteers or mentors within the community can model reflective faith, provide guidance, and offer a non-judgmental listening ear. That builds strong bonds.
Having someone to look up to and talk to.
Yes, and don't underestimate the power of genuine family involvement. Creating opportunities for intergenerational discussions, family service projects, or shared learning experiences reinforces that sense of belonging across age groups and connects learning to home life. Most importantly, though, is creating truly safe spaces for dialogue.
Safe spaces, meaning.
Meaning environments where diverse viewpoints are genuinely respected, where it's truly okay to ask difficult questions, express doubts, or share personal experiences without fear of judgment or ridicule. This is crucial for building trust and authentic connection. An excellent example activity is holding regular faith circle discussions. Kids sit in a circle, perhaps share personal stories related to a theme or value, listen respectfully to their peers, and practice empathy, perhaps guided by a facilitator who helps them connect and reflect analytically but compassionately.
Building community through shared vulnerability and respectful dialogue. Powerful. Okay, next. Integrate purpose-driven learning. This links back to what you said earlier about younger generations really seeking meaning.
It does, profoundly so. Research consistently shows that connecting learning to a larger purpose, especially one tied to making a positive impact on the world, is a powerful sustainer of intrinsic motivation, especially over the long haul. It answers the "why does this matter" question in a really compelling way. Religious education, with its inherent focus on values like compassion, justice, service, and stewardship, is naturally well positioned to do this.
So how do you make that connection explicit and tangible for kids?
Strategies include explicitly linking the teachings or stories to real-world impact. Don't just talk about charity. Organize a food drive inspired by a specific teaching about generosity. Don't just discuss stewardship. Plan an environmental cleanup project connected to beliefs about caring for creation.
Making it concrete.
Yes. Inspire them through powerful stories. Stories of religious figures, both historical and contemporary, who lived out their values and drove positive social change. Help children see themselves as potential agents of good in the world, capable of making a difference. And use reflective exercises, maybe journaling, group discussions, or creative responses where they reflect on how their faith or values connect to broader societal goals or challenges they see around them. That Values in Action challenge we mentioned is a prime example. Kids research a community issue they care about, then propose solutions based on specific religious principles they've learned.
So it's not just about internal belief, it's about translating that belief into external action and impact. That makes it deeply personal and deeply meaningful.
Exactly. It connects the head, the heart, and the hands. Now, on technology, the sources are very clear. Use it, but use it thoughtfully, strategically, and with clear purpose.
Right. These kids are digital natives, so we can't ignore it, but we need to be smart about it.
Precisely. We know excessive, unguided tech use risks that over-justification effect, potentially reducing intrinsic drive, and it can also foster isolation if it replaces human interaction. So technology in any educational setting, including religious ed, should enhance the learning experience, support the goals, but not dominate it or become an end in itself.
So not just sticking kids on tablets and hoping learning happens by magic.
Definitely not. Use interactive tools sparingly and ensure they genuinely support autonomy, creativity, or deep understanding, not just rote recall. For example, high-quality animated religious stories can bring narratives to life for younger kids. Virtual tours of historical sites or sacred spaces can provide context. Interactive timelines can help them grasp chronology.
Using tech to do things you couldn't easily do otherwise.
Exactly. But limit the heavily gamified platforms, especially those focused on points, leaderboards, and rewarding speed or simple correct answers. Avoid tools that primarily encourage passive consumption. Instead, look for tools that foster exploration, maybe an interactive study app with embedded reflection questions or creative tools that let kids design something related to their learning.
Active creation over passive consumption.
Yes, and always, always balance any digital engagement with plenty of robust human interaction, discussion, and collaboration. A good model might be: use a tablet for 15 minutes to research the historical context of a religious text or explore different artistic interpretations, but then immediately follow that with a 30-minute small group discussion where kids debate its meaning, share personal connections, and challenge each other's thinking.
That perfectly blends the benefits of digital tools with the irreplaceable value of human connection and conversation. Okay, 2 more key principles: promote mental health and low-pressure learning. This feels incredibly important today given rising rates of anxiety among kids.
It is absolutely paramount. Excessive pressure, whether it's academic pressure, social pressure, even pressure to have the right beliefs or feelings, actively erodes intrinsic motivation. It causes stress and anxiety, which shuts down curiosity and hinders deep critical thinking. Any educational setting, and maybe especially one dealing with personal beliefs and values, needs to be a space that nurtures emotional well-being.
So how do you create that low-pressure, supportive atmosphere?
Strategies include deliberately creating a low-stakes learning environment, move away from high-pressure tests or assessments based purely on memorization. Use more open-ended, qualitative assessments like observing participation, reviewing creative projects or reflective journals, or having conversations. Focus on growth and effort. Incorporate practices that support emotional regulation and reflection, maybe brief moments of quiet prayer, guided meditation, mindfulness exercises focused on gratitude or breathing, tailored appropriately for the age group and context.
Building in moments of calm and reflection.
Yes. And crucially, validate their emotions. Explicitly teach children that it's normal and okay to have doubts, to feel confused, to struggle with complex ideas, or even to disagree respectfully. Use these moments not as problems to be shut down, but as opportunities for deeper, more compassionate and critical discussions. Help them develop emotional literacy alongside religious or ethical literacy. A simple gratitude journal, where children regularly write or draw about something they're thankful for, perhaps connected to the value they're learning, provides a wonderful, non-judgmental space for self-reflection without performance pressure.
It sounds like creating a really psychologically safe container for them to explore not just ideas, but also their own thoughts and feelings about those ideas wherever they might land.
That's the goal. Psychological safety is foundational. And finally, underpinning all of this, is the need to tailor everything to developmental stages. What works for a 6-year-old is very different from what engages a 12-year-old.
Right. One size definitely does not fit all.
Not at all. For the younger children, say ages 5 to 8, the focus should be heavily on engaging storytelling, imaginative play, concrete examples, simple moral lessons, lots of visuals, music, movement, and hands-on activities. They learn best through direct experience and sensory engagement.
Keep it active and concrete.
Exactly. For the older children, maybe ages 9 to 13, you can start introducing more complex ethical dilemmas,
Yeah.
delving into historical context and nuance, exploring abstract concepts, and offering significantly more autonomy in choosing projects, leading discussions, and wrestling with challenging questions. They're developing the capacity for more abstract thought and critical analysis.
So a story circle with puppets might be perfect for the little ones,
Yes.
while a structured debate club on an ethical issue might be really engaging for the older group.
Precisely. Meeting them where they are developmentally is key to keeping them intrinsically motivated and ensuring the challenges feel meaningful and achievable.
That makes perfect sense. This is such a rich set of strategies. Quickly, though, what about implementation? Putting this all into practice sounds great, but what are some key tips or potential challenges people might face?
Great question. Teacher or facilitator training is absolutely paramount. You can't just hand some of these ideas. Educators need support and training to develop the skills to actually foster autonomy effectively, facilitate nuanced, critical discussions without imposing their own views, manage group dynamics respectfully, and create that psychologically safe environment. It requires a shift in mindset for many.
Investing in the adults is key.
Crucial. Parental engagement is also really helpful. Offering workshops for parents on autonomy, supportive communication, or creating shared family learning activities can reinforce these principles at home and build a more consistent environment for the child. Assessment needs rethinking too, moving towards qualitative methods like portfolios, reflections, project rubrics focused on process, and observation of engagement, rather than just relying on traditional tests or grades, which can quickly become extrinsic motivators.
Measuring what matters, not just what's easy to measure.
Exactly. And partnerships can be powerful. Connecting with local religious leaders, community organizations, or experts can provide authentic, purpose-driven experiences that extend learning beyond the classroom walls. Potential challenges. You might encounter initial resistance to questioning, especially if children or parents are accustomed to more didactic, rote learning approaches. Framing questioning as a way to deepen understanding, not challenge authority, is key. Balancing diverse beliefs and levels of understanding within a group requires skillful facilitation, emphasizing shared universal values while allowing respectful exploration of specific traditions or differing viewpoints. It's definitely an ongoing process of learning, adapting, and growing for the adults as much as for the children.
Wow. That is a truly comprehensive and practical roadmap, packed with actionable insights. It really feels like this deep dive has offered a clear path forward for you, our listener, ways to apply these powerful ideas about motivation in your own interactions with children. Whether you're that parent, that educator, that mentor, or just someone who cares deeply about nurturing the next generation.
Yeah, I think the core message that comes through all the research, from the foundational theories to specifics of today's kids, is pretty clear. If we want to foster that deep, enduring, intrinsic motivation, the kind that fuels lifelong learning and resilience, we have to deliberately and consistently support a child's fundamental psychological needs. Their need for autonomy, for competence, and for relatedness.
What's 3 pillars again?
They keep coming back because they're so foundational. Understanding the latest research from STT to the neuroscience of dopamine and effort to dynamic goal setting to the profound influence of social context and environmental cues, all of this helps us navigate the really unique landscape that children born after 2022 are growing up in.
And it also equips us to be more critical consumers, right? To evaluate those powerful, often unseen external forces like corporate messaging or even well-intentioned but perhaps flawed CSR initiatives, which can subtly but significantly shape a child's inner drive, for better or worse.
Exactly. It gives us the tools to ask the right questions.
Ultimately, it feels like it's about building an environment where children don't just learn because they have to, but because they genuinely want to, where their natural curiosity is treated like a precious fire that needs tending so it burns brightly from within, not just a temporary flicker that's constantly needing to be reignited by some external reward or pressure. It's about cultivating resilience, a sense of purpose, and hopefully a lifelong love of discovery and growth.
Beautifully put. It really is about nurturing that internal flame.
So, as you, our listener, move forward from this conversation, maybe consider this provocative thought. In a world that is constantly, aggressively vying for children's attention with instant gratification, endless external rewards, and pervasive digital distractions, how can you, in your specific role, intentionally create the spaces, the relationships, and the experiences that cultivate and protect that deep, enduring, intrinsic motivation, that love for learning, for growing, for contributing, that truly comes from within? How can you help keep that internal fire self-sustaining?
That's the challenge and the opportunity, isn't it?
It really is. We invite you to continue your own deep dive. Maybe start by simply observing the children around you, your kids, grandkids, students, mentees, through this new lens of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Pay attention to what truly seems to light them up from the inside. You might be surprised and inspired by the hidden wellsprings of motivation you discover.